All right, Michael. So, does that kind of help you understand like an overall idea of what agoraphobia is?
Yeah.
And then with exposure therapy, do you have any questions as far as like how that works or anything?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, how are you going to like expose me to the situation?
No, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. So, how am I going to expose you? So, really, it's going to be something that we're going to do together. Okay. And I know it's a little bit uncomfortable, but we're going to get through it together. We will first start off by setting up some goals, okay? And don't worry, we'll start small, work our way big. So, if it kind of helps you, you can imagine like a ladder, right? And typically you climb a ladder from the bottom up, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess, what would you like to work on first? Would you like to work on the tight spaces or being in a large crowd?
Something that isn't super duper scary, like as bad as my other one, is the crowds, because I am around a lot of people.
Crowds.
The one where leaving my house alone is a bit more scary.
Okay. So leaving the house is a bit more scary, but the crowds one, you feel like maybe that's a little less scary and something you'd feel comfortable starting?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So what we want to do is, in thinking of a goal, like to put here at the bottom of the ladder, and we want to make sure it's specific, right?
Yeah.
Time bound, like placing a time, so that it's like it doesn't pass us and we forget about it. Has to be achievable and realistic, so you can remember it with like the acronym STAR. Okay, so specific, time-based, achievable, and realistic. So a good one that's super simple, I think that we could start off with is like, I'm just throwing this time out there, you don't have to do this time, but would be like, before the clock hits 12 o'clock noon each day, I am going to, in some way, whether that's like at the store or going to a friend's or whatever, I am going to put myself in a situation where I am not just by myself. Like, I'm at least with one other person. Okay? So start off with just you and one other person. And then eventually, as you start feeling more and more comfortable with that, it can be you and 2 people, you and 3 people, so on and so on. So then eventually, you are there in a crowd. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And having it, I just used the noon example. It's just knowing, okay, like, noon is going to happen regardless of the day. So I can either let noon go and not do it and be frustrated with myself, or I can say, you know what? Before noon, I'm going to do this. And then, how do you think you might feel if you're able to do that?
Pretty good, I guess.
Pretty good?
If I do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question. That's definitely kind of just one example of the many that exposure therapy will involve, okay? All right, but before we jump into that, I want you to do this as a homework activity, and then we will follow up in our next session. So just between now and next week, if you can think of an example when you felt anxious, but that after practicing the anxious activity, it felt easier to you. And this can be a single activity or multiple ones from now until we meet next week. If you want to just like jot that down in a journal, and then when we come back next week, we can talk about that. Does that seem doable?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right, so let's plan on that for next week, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in today.
Okay.